So somehow amp sims came up today in a session, and we were talking about what the difference is we think between models and tube amps are. And kind of not to mention solid states, not because they're not valid. It's just not what we were talking about. And what the difference is between kind of mixing or dealing with amp sims and like a tube amp is. My read on it has always been, in a mix, dealing with an amp sim is a completely different thing than dealing with like a mic'd cab. It's completely different. It feels like the opposite to me. So when I have a cab I've mic'd and everything, I feel like it's got like so much matter in it, kind of so much mass and fuzziness and weirdness on different layers. Not necessarily weirdness like in a bad way, just complexity. That's really the way I think about it. There's so much complexity, and I'm usually carving out of that complexity to get a sound or I feel like I'm carving out of that to get a sound that I like, that fits in a mix and does what it needs to do. And when you get a sim, they're like exactly the opposite of that. It's like somebody mathematically said, this is exactly how much 3K and 100 hertz and 250 hertz I need. I don't know why, but they all feel like that to me. It's like they're kind of thin, but they're thin in a way that I understand is intended to be easy to use and make sense in a lot of mixes. I don't think they're wrong, but they're thin. And I always find myself adding distortion to them, not like amp distortion, like tube saturation or compressors or something that do something a little harmonically interesting. I don't know, anything I can throw at them to get some of that complexity back. That complexity that I'm literally cutting out of a real amp. I'm coming at it from a completely different angle. Maybe that's just me, but when I talk to people, I get, kind of similar ideas about the weirdness of mixing sims, even very good sims, which they are. They're objectively very good. And for certain genres, like metalcore and certain kinds of metal, they're kind of standard for albums now. And for metalcore, especially weird things like that, they're almost better sometimes. But that's a pretty specific thing to me. And mostly, I still like tube amps. I know you hear albums all the time where all the guitars are sims. Not all the time, but it's common enough. And in a mix, especially in the hands of a half-decent engineer, they sound fine, and I don't notice them in other people's work. Unless I'm like really trying, and I'm not sure I could pick that out. Like if you gave me a test, could I pick out sims in good work better than a 50-50, guess? I'm not sure. I don't know that I could. But when it comes to working with them, I think sims are weird. They're just odd. They have a weird kind of mid-range. They're always a little too thin. Like I said, they kind of lack complexity. And it's not that they're not doing the job they're meant to do, because that's what they usually are. They're doing exactly what guitars are supposed to do. And it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right yet. Though I will say, if I got anything, it would be a Kemper. To me, that's the only one where I've had somebody come in with a Kemper and load up a sound, and I have been like, holy crap, this is amazing. This sounds exactly like an amp to me. As a matter of fact, maybe I couldn't have made this sound the way it is. I love this. I've never seen that from anybody else, Helix or Axe FX or I don't know, just name it, whatever it is. I've heard it at least a couple times. And of course, it's dependent on the patch and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, for me, it's never happened with anything but a Kemper. And I'm not saying every Kemper tone is amazing, but I'm saying I've heard it once. In live, absolutely. Use a modeler live. Because the benefit of not having a huge stage volume is so big that the amount of difference between a tube amp and a modeler is nothing compared to the advantage you get in room tone generally, especially in a smaller venue, against having loud amps on stage. And people don't want to hear it, but it's true. You're going to sound better if you're not blasting off the stage. If you're blasting off the stage, your sound in the audience is probably garbage. I'm sorry, it just is. That's a choice you've made. Also, in live stuff, usually sound systems you're playing through in the rooms you're in frequently are not good enough to be able to tell that little difference anyway. And in a huge room, it's almost like it's made up for by the crowd and just the sound of the room. Even if it's not a good room, there's something about everything being in a room, right? That's kind of worthwhile. And so it's kind of made up for in other ways. And in some ways, I don't think you could really hear the difference anyway, or that's not a good arena to be able to pick out the difference. I think modelers are the way to go live. But I still think in the studio, it's just a little better. They just feel a little better. They're just a little more interesting sounding. You know what? 2 amps are fun. I'll be sorry to see them go. I know they will. They'll go someday. Nobody will want them or nobody will need them. It will just be collectors. I get that. But I will be one of them.